Hello students, welcome back to Narayana Digital Classes. Today we will be solving the assignment number 27 on the topic atomic structure. Let's move on to the assignment. Here the question, when a beam of light is passed through a substance and the transmitted light is analyzed, the spectrum obtained is called, right? So what happens, take a substance and pass a beam of light through it. So when you pass a beam of light through it, the light will transmit it into the substance, right? To analyze that light spectrum is called, what is that spectrum? So that spectrum is absorption spectrum. That spectrum is absorption spectrum, because there light is absorbing by the substance. That light is we are analyzing by a spectrum. So that spectrum is called as absorption spectrum. So the correct answer is first option, third option. Let's move on to the next question. Here the second question, when a substance is heated, the electron in the atoms will be excited. So as these excited electrons return their normal energy state, the substance give off light of characteristic color. When the light is passed through a prism, we get spectrum is called. For example, just consider these are the energy levels which are present in a atom, right? Which are present in a atom. So one electron is present in the ground state. One electron is present in the ground state. Whenever if you give energy to this energy to this electron will immediately excite to excited state, right? Excited state. So that is the statement. So a substance is heated, that means we are giving energy to the substance. The electron in atoms will excited to the excited level. As these excited electrons again return to their normal ground state. Right? The substance give off light. So whenever this electron return to the normal state, that substance give off some light. So that light is, when you pass through a prism, you will observe a spectrum. So that spectrum is called as emission spectrum. The spectrum is called as emission spectrum. So the correct option is first option. Let's move on to the next question. Here the third question, the absorption spectrum contains dark lines on dash. So based on the background, the spectrum has changed. If it is dark background, one spectrum will come. If it is yellow background, one spectrum. If it is green background, one spectrum. If it is light background or bright background. So based on the backgrounds, the spectrum has changed. So in this absorption spectrum, the dark lines contain whenever the background is bright. So the correct option is third option, that is bright background. Let's move on to the next question. Here the fourth question, emission spectrum contains bright lines on a dash. Just now we discussed. So based on the background, the spectrum has changed to one spectrum to another spectrum. So absorption spectrum give dark lines on bright background. In the same way, emission spectrum will give bright lines on dark background. Because in emission spectrum, the spectrum is we are analyzing whenever the excited electron come into the ground state. Some of the light is give off. So that light is, when you pass it through the prism, it will give emission spectrum, right? So that emission spectrum contains bright lines whenever the background is dark. So the correct option is third option. Let's move on to the next question. Here the question, when the absorption spectrum is in the form of dark bands, this is known as. We just now we have discussed absorption spectrum give dark lines whenever the background is bright. So that spectrum is called as band absorption spectrum. That spectrum is called as band absorption spectrum. So when the absorption spectrum is in the form of dark bands, this is known as band absorption spectrum. So the correct option is fourth option. I hope you all understand well. Thank you very much.